they are not float. So that's why here you can do two different things. The first one, you can make sure that one of the arguments is not integer. It might be float, and just add this 0.0. So here you can see that the result becomes better. Or you can just change it here, right? Otherwise, if that's not a constant, right? If that's a variable, you will have to make explicit conversion. So it will be something like to f. I'm not sure if that's right. Yeah, that's right. So that's the only case where what you will really see in Ruby programs. Okay. Also, one very small difference between Ruby and C. I'm sure most of you guys know C language, right? Okay. So the difference that Ruby doesn't have these plus operation, increment. So if you will have some counter equal 1, so here you will not be able to write counter plus, right? But you will be able to write plus equal. So plus equal and any operation with equal at the end, it's like a shortcut for you, just just shortcut for you to allow you to write operations like counter equal, counter plus 1. So if you substitute plus with some other operation, it will work exactly the same way. So if you write this, it will be the same operations. Okay. So here we go. Do you have any questions about mathematical operations? I think they are also pretty straightforward, right? Sure. That's bad. I think that might be because of the internet connection. It's working from my phone, and I'm not sure. Okay. So 1 second. Yeah. The next theme which we'll touch is strings and comments. So in Ruby you can create string value in several different ways. The simplest one is I'm not sure how this symbol named. It's like okay. So you can create strings in two different ways using one ticks, single ticks and double ticks, right? So quotes, right? Yeah, single quotes. Yeah, that's right. String 1, string 2. So you can use single quotes and double quotes. Single quotes don't allow you to add any substitution inside the string. So if you'll write here this substitution, it will not work. If you'll write substitution with double quote string, it will work fine. So here you can see string 2, okay. So the first one wasn't substituted, and the second one was substituted just fine. Also, you can create strings in another way. It's usually used if you want to create really large parts of strings, something like some part of HTML or maybe JSON or something like that. So here you can write something like HTML . So here you can see that we started creating this string with two less signs, and after that we added something like delimiter, the name of delimiter. It might be really random. You can write here everything you want, but it should end your string in the same way. The same delimiter should be at the end. So that allows you to create large strings without these single and double quotes, and it's really easy to understand where your string starts and where it ends, because it has the same delimiter at the beginning and at the end. The only interesting part to note here is that if you will have some indentation level inside your class, because you understand, I'm talking about some indentation. If you have some class, here you have some method, right? And here you're trying to define these variable, right? So the important part here is that that string will not count your indentation level, so it will not remove that. So if you will just create a string in this way, so all these spaces will be inside your string. That's why even if you will have some indentation level, you will have to move all your string content to the most left position. Okay. So let's check that it works at all. HTML. Okay. Yeah, it works. Also, inside such definitions, you can add any substitutions you like. So here you can see that 1 to 3 was substituted just fine. And that's mostly all. Also, there is a bit different way to create multi-line strings with single quotes and double quotes. They work this way. So if you want to create multi-line string with single quotes, you should write the full string here, then add backslash, right? And continue writing string here. So that will count like same line, the same string continues on the same line. So here you can see that, okay. Here you can see that that string was counted like single line, right? Because if you'll just keep that this way, so it will also work, but it will include all the next line characters, new line characters inside your string. So you see that it has all these new lines. Okay. It's very similar with double quotes, but with double quotes you can put these backslashes inside the string. So it will work this way. So you can see that it's single line string, right? Okay, and exactly the same way, if I will remove all backslashes, you will have the same string but with all new lines inside it. Right. So let's get to comments. In Ruby there are only two types of comments. First type is any string or part of any line or part of the line which starts with octothorpe, and here you can see that it's highlighted like a comment. So you can create any amount of lines you need one by one by adding these octothorpe in the beginning. There is also a bit different way to create multi-line comment. This way, begin, and this way. So here you can see that it's also highlighted as a comment, right? But in general, it's very rare situation when you will see such comments. Mainly, you will see something like that. Okay, guys, any questions about strings and comments? We are fine. Moving forward. Okay. Okay. So after that, we'll touch control structures. Do you guys know what control structures are? Yes, like that. If statements, loops, and other stuff. So if statements, I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. So if you have counter equal 1, if counter more than 10, more, else less. Okay. So it's very basic control structure. Here you have if control structure, which will split your execution thread into two different variants. The first one if counter more than 10, the second one if counter is less than 10, right? Here we can understand that it's less, right? Sure, you can remove the else. I mean, you can remove else case, and in that case, nothing will be done with else. Very important part here is that you can assign the result of control structures. It's like you can write result because okay. Result. Here you can see that we are duplicating this puts call, right? It's called 2 times. Here we can change that by removing puts, assigning the result if statement to some variable, and then puts the variable. This way you can see that the result of the whole control structure will be the last value which was executed inside this control variable. Here you can see that it should be less. Less will be assigned to result, and here we'll puts result. We can output that and see that it's really less. We can change that to 100 and see that it's more. That works fine. Okay. So after that we have several other control structures. Just to make sure I will not miss something. Yeah, I missed very important part here. We can add if else, else if. That's that way. Else if, it's like a shortcut for else and if inside. It's like if you'll write else and if here. So it's a bit shorter in Ruby. Else if, for example, counter less than 0. Zero. Here we go. 400, it's still more. Here it's less than 0. So here you can understand this control structure, very similar to case, but not exactly similar, because it will go from top to the bottom and it will try to find the first match. So the first match, if you'll have several else if structures, because you can write it like that, a lot of else if structures and the else structures at the end. For sure, it's not the best practice. You understand? Okay, so after that we'll touch, I think, loops. Oh, yeah, we have also one more. We have pretty short variant of this if-else. It's like ternary operator. I'm not sure if I'm right in English. So it's operator with three parts. It's like it has condition, it has true part and false part. So it's much shorter, right? Not this way, but this. Okay. It will work the same way. So that's fine. Yeah, right now we'll get to loops. What we can do with loops in Ruby. We can do really simple loops like 10 times do. So that loop should run this block 10 times. Inside block we'll get iterator. It will be changed from 0 to 9 as unusual programming languages. So here we can see that we'll get 10 iterations from 0 to 9. Also we can do something like, I think 10 up to 20 or 2, yeah, 10 up to 20. In that case you can define the start position and end position. It might be useful for some tasks which you will encounter, and in opposite direction it will be down to, yeah, that works. Okay, I think that that's also pretty straightforward. Do you have any questions about loops? That's fine, right? Okay, that's great. So one second. So after loops we will check yeah, we will check case. I'm pretty sure that all you guys know what's case doing. Do you know what's case? Switch statement, right? Okay, so in Ruby it's written like counter equal 10, case counter when, for example, 10 when okay, so here you can see that inside case statement you can define the values in several different ways. The first one is usual constant, right? The next one is enumeration of the constants, and also you can define that as a range. Okay. Do you know the difference between ranges with 2 dots and 3 dots? Okay. So the range with 2 dots will include both the beginning value and end value. The range with 3 dots will include the beginning but will exclude the end value. It's like if you write it this way, that means you will include 1, 2 and 3. But if you do that this way, it will be only 1 and 2. I think you understand why it's useful. Because from time to time you really need to add this -1 and right, for some loops and for some stuff in in low-level programming languages, and here it's done for you. Also, inside this case control structure, you can add else. That means if no conditions matched your counter, so in that case you will hit else. Something else. Let's try 1000. Yeah, something else. That works just fine. Okay, do you have any questions referring to control structures? No? Okay, that's great. So let's check what we can do with loops and some types of the objects. So for example, if you have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, in that case you can easily iterate through this array using each or something like that. For example, digits, each do digit puts digit. Okay, so here you can see that we iterated through array in a really easy way. We just wrote that we should take each digit inside digits array and just print it. That's fine. Also, you can add any values to this array. You can push it to the end using these less operator. So here you can see that we'll have 1 to 6 digits. Also you can use something like push. It's really the same. So also we'll touch these operations a bit later. There are a lot of operations which are ready to use, and you can just use them without any additional development. So after that we will touch functions. In Ruby it's really easy to define functions using keyword def. It's shortcut for define, right? So we can define my function with some arguments. String, for example, puts my function was called with argument string. Okay, so we can try to call it function. Yeah, here you can see that functions are parts of the code which are easily reusable, because once you wrote some function, you can call it with different arguments anytime you want. So any arguments work just fine. Okay, functions have really different variants of argument definition. The simplest one is just define arguments with names. Also you can define some argument which will have default value. For example, argument with default equal 1 to 3. Sure that you understand that default word here doesn't mean anything. You can name it ABC, right? Or arg. And here you can see that we can call my function just without the arg argument, and it works fine. And you see that it was initialized with 1 to 3 value, right? And if you want to override this 1 to 3 value, so you can pass your value. It's pretty easy. So it will be 2, 3, 4. This type of argument definition is pretty fine. It's used really often, but it has some disadvantages. Main disadvantage here is that if you have a lot of arguments, for example 10 or 15, and from time to time it might be so. Mainly it might be so if you have some function with a lot of configuration. For example, you can print something on the screen, right? But if you want to create some function which will accept some styling, for example font size, maybe the color, something else, it might easily take something like 30 different arguments, and most of them for you will be null. They will be just empty. So, and to make sure that you will not write something like print out and something like color, font size, font maybe. So here, if you want to print something, you know, just to make sure that you will not write something like Yuri, nil, and font Helvetica, right? You really don't want to do that, right? Because if you'll have 30 nils here, that's not the best case, right? Something like that. It will be just crazy. And if you want to insert some argument on position 16th, maybe just crazy. So that's why we have possibility to create keyword arguments. They are created using this format, and here you also can add some default values, maybe black, right? Font size maybe 14 pixels. Sure, I will not use that inside, but just for sure we know that color, font size equals font size, and what we missed, font. So here you can see that I can pass just Yuri, right? Whoa, we're in troubles. String Yuri, right? And it works fine. We have string Yuri with color black, font size blah blah blah. So you can see that we changed our function call a bit. We should name specific arguments here. So you can see that we added this string Yuri. We are naming that this argument is for string, and here we can add font Arial, something like that. And you see we changed font here without any additional stuff like color nil and something else nil. We are fine. So that's it. Any questions for argument definition? All's fine, guys? You're not sleeping still? Great. Huh? Yeah, in fact, I've just created global function, so it will be accessible everywhere. So, you know, if I will require some files here, I will also be able to call these functions there, because right now it has you know, current scope, it's main scope of the program execution. Okay, so Let's check what we're going to do next. Yeah, the next is classes and objects. Yeah, here we'll touch these instance variables and class variables, which we were talking about at the beginning of the lesson, right? So to create some class, it's really easy in Ruby. You can just write class, for example, television. No, let's write screen. Okay. So inside class you have one very specific method which is named initialize, and it will be called every time you instantiate your class object. What I'm talking about. Puts in it. So if we'll do something like screen new, you can see that we called init, right? Because here we try to create new instance of screen class. Here inside this new method you can pass any arguments for initialization. For example, it might be maybe widths and heights. It's really hard word. Every time I have to check it. Height. Okay. Yeah, it should be this way. Okay. So, and we already talked with you about keyword arguments, and we will use that here. Widths, height. Okay. We did. Yeah, you're right. It's really hard words, width and height, really. Okay. Anyway, so once you've got these variables inside your initialize method, you really want to save it somewhere inside the object. Why? You want to do that because you will have some other methods inside. For example, info. Yeah, let's just add some method which will return some information about your television. For example, some configuration options which are set there right now. So you will just return something like we did so. Yeah. Right. Okay. So here you can see that we will have an error, right? Why do we have an error? Any ideas? Sure, because these widths and height are just local variables. Remember, it's just it consists only of lowercase letters, so it's local variable. Local variable is restricted to some scope. Its scope here is method, so they are accessible only inside this method. That's why it's not possible to use them in the next method. That's why you really want to save them in some other variables which have scope of vision of full class. So instance variables are just great for this aim. You will write something like widths, height. Okay. So right now you will just rename them and add some signs, and it will work just fine. So what should we do? Should we see here? Yeah, we will see that information is output as it should. Here you can see that inside initialization method we are saving our widths and height inside our class, inside our instance, right? And later we're using these variables inside our method info. So that's it. Also, we can create some class method. It will be done with self at the beginning. Self. I'm not sure what might be done here. Maybe make. I'm not sure that it's very good position for make here from logical point of view, because maybe you would like to do something like make here, yeah? Or G, yeah? No? Okay. Xiaomi. So, and let's try to do that using our class method. So if we'll move that inside class, we'll see something like that. That might be fine if we have some, you know, some manufacturer number. Maybe we'll have something like that. So, and we'll see that screen make. So we'll see that the make of the screen is Xiaomi and some number. That should be fine. Screen, okay. Here you can use class variables. They are very similar to instance variables, but they have even wider scope of vision. What I'm talking about, for example, we'll do something like something like that. Number. So we should be fine. Yes. So what's the difference between these class variable and instance variable here? You will notice that if we'll create two different screens, for example, screen 1 and screen 2. Here inside screen 1 and screen 2, screen 1 info, screen 2 info. For example, here we'll add zeros to the end, right? Let's try to run that. So here you will see that instance variables are scoped to some specific instance, right? If you will create several different screens, instance variables values will be different for different instances. Okay? Nice. And for class, it will be the value of this make for manufacturer number class variable will be the same for the whole class. That's a bit different. That means that you have something like only one class object in the system, right? Class definition in the system, and it will be changed for all these types in the same way. For example, we'll take class object for this screen 1 and run make. Okay. So here you can see that it has the same value here. So even if we'll just generate this manufacturer number manually. Something like that. So what you can expect here, we generated manufacturer number on the start, right? And after that we are trying to get manufacturer number for two different screens, right? And it will be the same. Next time we'll generate it, it will change the variables for all of them again. So let's try that. So you can see that we have two similar variable values and also two similar values, as expected, right? Do you have any questions about all that stuff? That's fine, yeah? Okay, I'm happy. Well, right now we'll talk about nil value. Nil value in Ruby, it's nil value. So nil value in Ruby, it's some name for nothing, for empty value. So if you will have, yeah, it usually means that something is empty, something is not initialized, maybe something like that. It's pretty easy to check if something is nil in Ruby. You can write art.nil with question sign. Here you can see true. Here you can see false. Pretty straightforward. I'm sure you don't have any questions about nil. Okay. Yeah, command line arguments. Command line arguments are pretty easy to access in Ruby. It's just argv. You remember we had argc in C language, right? It was arguments count and arguments vector. So here we have only arguments vector, because here you can easily get the count with count or length or size or something like that. So let's check that. Puts count and vector count. So here you can see that 0 empty vector. That's totally right. 1, 2, 3. Count is 3, vector 1, 2, 3. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Any questions? No questions. Great. Just great. Okay, so after that, yeah, let's try to read some file and write in file. We can also use maybe some variables. So let's try to implement some copy command using Ruby. It will be from to equal arg puts from to. Let's check that it's working. Copying from 1 to 2 txt. Okay, let's try to do .read from content, and then we can do file open to, oh sorry, right, do file content, something like that. So that's also pretty straightforward. Here we're reading the file, saving all the contents to variable. After that we're opening sorry, the next file with write flag. You remember the flags from C language, right? Which other flags do you have? R? Read, yeah, sure, we can do. A, what does it mean? Right, append. That's right to the end, append. And flag B, exactly. It might be R, might be W, B. It means binary format. Okay. So here we will just open that in usual format without binary. Just write. So we'll rewrite the whole content of the file and we'll replace it with content from file 1. Okay? Let's check. We can okay. So we have .txt with contents hello. I think we did a good job. That's fine. Any questions on files? Closing. Very good question. Here, as you can see, we are using this read call. Read call opens file, reads it, and closes it. So we have no troubles here. After that, we were using block. Block works in the very similar way. It opens the file here, calls the block, and closes file. Otherwise, you can use it something like that. File write, or just this way. It's two similar calls: file write content or file less content, and file close. So it's very similar. Let's try. So we created one txt with hello, right? And we'll call the same command ruby, and we'll have the same file 2txt with hello. Any other questions? I think all is fine. So after that, what we have here? Yeah, how can we require some file? For example, if we'll lib.rb version equal to. So what I'm doing right now, I've created a new file named lib.rb. Here I added expression with global variable lib version equal to, and what I am going to do is to require this lib file, and after that I will put lib version, right? Something like that. Yeah, lib version. Let's check. Okay, so Ruby, yeah, so as you can see, what we did here, we required some other file inside our directory. That's why we added these dot and slash. In fact, later we'll touch this requirement mechanism, and in fact you rarely need these dot slash calls. So require usually needed to implement some decoupling inside your library, inside your program, right? So this way you can decouple your solution into several different files and require appropriate files, which you really need. I think it also should be pretty straightforward. Okay. So that's mostly all for Ruby Commons. For very beginning of Ruby language functionality. What do you think, guys? Do you have any questions? Anything? Just all is clear, right? Nothing very difficult, very complex was right now here. Okay. I believe that you are honest with me. Well, right now we can touch Git functionality. Do you know what's Git? I mean Git. Raise your hands who knows that. Okay, several guys know that. So Git program is used to track your changes, to make sure that you are able to work in large decoupled teams. You should work in large teams in such way which will not make a lot of churn there, which will not touch some things, touch some work or some classes from other guys, or if you have some changes which are applied to the same class or same line, they should be merged in some usual way, in some common way which everyone understands. So in Git you have several commands. I will just check them here to make sure I will not miss something. So the first one sure is init. It's like the way you initialize the Git repository. What it really means? In fact, that means that inside current folder .git folder is created. Inside this .git folder, all meta information is stored about your current state of all the files, all the folders inside, with any level of nesting. Okay, let's check what's inside Git. So here you can see that there are several different information here. I'm not totally sure about several of them, but we can check. So head is just name of where we're looking right now. Config, here you can change some configuration of Git program for current repository. Also you can have something like git config inside your home directory. That's general configuration for your user. Inside, for example, if I will create new Git repository, this git config from my home directory will be substituted as default settings for Git program. So description, I think it's self-explanatory. Hooks is a pretty useful thing. From time to time you might want to run some tests or maybe some additional deployment process or something like that before any push or maybe before any pull from repository. Hooks are really for that. So they allow you to, for example, run tests before you're pushing to some branch, and if test fails, so they will say, okay, you cannot push. You have to fix some tests, and only after that you'll be able to proceed. Okay. Also info, objects and refs, it's like info, self-explanatory. Objects here, as I remember, are stored all the files from Git tree, and refs, I'm not totally sure that I remember that right, but that's just references to some specific points on your tree, which means some branches, maybe tags or something like that. In fact, you will rarely look inside your Git folder. It's just there, it just works for you. So after you created repository, you can check Git status, right? So status tells us that you have some untracked files and no commits yet. So that means that right now our repository is empty, and we added some changes. We can add them. Git add, for example, 1.txt. Git status. We can see that we have new file 1.txt which was added to Git index. So it was added, but it was not committed still. For example, we can try to git commit minus sm. That means sign this commit with my email and name. And the message means to write some message to explain this commit. So it's like some test file from the lesson. So here you can see that we created some commit. So git status, you can see that right now on branch master, yeah, and we have these untracked files still. Git log -p tells us that at that date me created some file, new file. Okay, so it was created from nothing, created to 1.txt with such content. So this way you will be able to check changes for the files you have. I've run git log. It's just show log of all the commits tree, and also log the changes for the files we have in these commits. So also we can add all the files using dot, git add dot. Here you can see that I added all the files. -sm, all the other files. For sure you should write some useful self-explanatory comments for each commit to make sure that it's really easy to find some specific information, maybe some changes inside the Git tree. So right now it looks like that. We have the last commit and previous commits. Here I have some shortcuts. They are like that. A bit long to write it by hand, right? Git log color graph blah 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 blah. So anyway, you will end with some shortcuts for Git anyway, because I have shortcuts for anything. Something like Git status is just GS. Git checkout. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about Git checkout. Let's do that right now. So in Git, Git is very powerful not only with its commits, but also with its branches. What does that mean? That really means that I'm not sure that they have intranets. Okay, never mind. So let's check the Git tree in one of our repositories. So here you can see that we have some commits which are going one by one, but also we have some branches which are somewhere at the on the previous commits. Well, I'm thinking about that right now, and I'm pretty sure that most of you guys don't understand what I'm talking about, right? Raise hands who didn't understand anything I was talking about. That's fine. Don't be afraid. You can ask me every time when you're not sure you understand me. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure that I cannot explain you that really in a really good way right now. So it will be your homework to read. I'm not sure. I think it's named Git Handbook or something like that. It's just very short explanation how to work with Git. Only something like 60 pages. Not so much. It's really not so much, you know. So you'll have to check that. You'll have to read that through. And right now I will just go through other comments. And once you finished your home reading, you can just get back to the video and check what I was talking about. I think it's a good plan. So, as you will know after your home reading is finished, you will know that Git has different branches. It allows you to develop your application using different branches. For example, you will have one or two, maybe three main branches, something like master, staging, and something else, maybe test. I'm not sure about that. Usually it's staging and master, or staging and production. So that's two branches which hold all the code, and production hold the code which was tested and which is deployed on production. Staging or test or something like that will hold all the new code, or it will be master which will hold all the new code. So once you're starting to develop some new functionality, you will go to the end of master branch and you will create new branch there. For example, you'll create branch which will be named as your new feature. For example, my fancy charts, something like that. And in that branch, you will add your commits. You will add them. You will finish your feature. It will take you maybe 10 commits. So after that, you will have two different ways to go. After that, you will merge your feature inside master branch, or you will rebase it on master branch and merge. It will just change the Git tree a bit, but in general, it will result in the same code structure and code content. How many of you guys understood something? That's great. I think it's the guys which told me that they know the Git, and that's fine. The other part of you guys will know that once you finished the Git handbook. That will be really easy. Okay, so let me check. Did we miss something? Yes, we missed something. So right now I want to show you how Ruby libraries are organized. Do you know the word gem? Okay. So Ruby libraries are called gems. It's like some parts of the code which are organized and structured in very specific way, which is really common to Ruby world. So if you check colorize gem Ruby. Okay. So it's really simple gem which allows you to print some colorized output. Let's try to do that. Where's my terminal? Okay. Gem file. So usually you have gem file in your repository which holds all the gems you're using here. So for example, it will be, you will use gem colorize. Am I right? Colorize, yes. I'm not sure. I should add some source there. We'll check that right now. Oh. Yep. Ah, okay. In fact, you will check all the gems on the next lesson, guys. Yeah, because I wanted to start gems and then Rails, something like that, and by the Thursday, maybe Friday, you will know Ruby pretty well. Really. But that's fine, not today. So let's recall all the stuff we were talking about today. The first one was variables, right? Remember all the stuff about it? Also, we were talking about mathematical operations, also about loops, control structures, after that about classes a bit, and what else? We talked about arguments of Ruby programs and maybe something like how can we require some external files. I think this lesson wasn't really hard for you guys, really. Maybe some part of Git at the end. Just a bit. But that's fine, okay. You'll do that. So we recalled all the stuff. Maybe you have any questions right now? No questions? Okay, in that case, I want to say thank you for the lesson. I was really happy to see all of you, and have a